Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing My Year of Rest and Relaxation, written by Ottessa Moshfegh. I enjoyed this book. It's a very, very strange book, and I think this author only writes strange books. Maybe. This is the second book I've read by this author, and both have been strange. But while they're strange, they're also well written, well constructed, and they have just many layers to them, many elements to them. And they also have main characters that, while they're engaging, they're not always likable. And the main character in this book is very unlikable, very hard to like indeed. But that's also the beauty of the story, I guess, in a way, because it must be very hard to write a story and have it so engaging when the main character is unlikable. It wouldn't be an easy thing to do. But Ottessa Moshfegh is able to do that with ease. It feels effortless. And this story just seems to be so unique, but also a really pleasant read. The narrator, who remains unnamed for the entire story, she has a plan. She wants to spend 12 months disconnected from the world. So her character, she's suffering from depression. We get that sense. And we get the sense that she wants to cope with that by disconnecting and trying to heal in that way. She wants to see if by doing that for 12 months, around about 12 months, what will that do to her personality? Will it refresh her? Will it let her just see things in the world she can connect with again? Will they stand out more to her if she just disconnects and doesn't think, doesn't worry about things? Remove all anxiety, remove stress, remove pressures for 12 months and just see what really makes sense to the character after that period. What's special? That's what I get the sense that this is meant to be in this story. We have a character that's struggling a bit. There's pressures building up and she's struggling, not coping. And so the only way she can fix that is by doing this, disconnecting for 12 months. And she's doing that by medicating, probably over-medicating really. And the only way she can do that is finding a psychiatrist that is willing to prescribe things left, right and centre. And she does that. She finds a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is there primarily for comic relief, but also to write the scripts for all the medication. But the psychiatrist is quite wacky in the book, and there are some light moments with that psychiatrist because you need that. Because this book is quite dark. Even though it's a pleasant read, it's still a dark book because of the tone and the concepts in the story. When you're concentrating on depression so much and you're seeing a character that's going through so many things and in most cases being ignored by other people. The character has people coming in and out of her life at different times. She still connects sometimes with the world. She still goes out and gets a coffee from the corner store. She still has to eat and things like that. So she can't disconnect completely. But in those small connections, nobody asks things like, how are you? Nobody seems to care enough to try to find out what's going on fully. People sometimes ask, just how are you, in an offhanded way it seems, because they're really there to talk about themselves. But nobody seems to follow things up after asking that question. So it's interesting to see that this character's spiraling deeper and deeper into a hole, but there's nobody there to kind of shine a torch so she can come out of it easily. So one of the people who come in and out all the time is her best friend, Reva. And the narrator doesn't think of her as a friend anymore, kind of tolerates her. And we see why. And we see Reva coming in and just exploding with things going on in her own life. And it seems like she's coming over all the time to get support for herself, get her side of things out, get her worries out, her concerns out in her own life, but kind of ignores all the worries and concerns in the narrator's life. And I got that sense in the book. And the other main character, of course, in and out of the life is the Doctor, Dr. Tuttle. And of course she's there for comic relief because she has these wacky and crazy ideas about certain things. And they are quite fun to read. They are wacky. A lot of it's just, very bizarre and conspiracy theory-like, and things that are unfounded with science, and just wacky remedies or wacky prescriptions because this mixed with this will cure that. There's an obscure study that says this, and you get a lot of that in the story with this doctor character. So that's the light-hearted part of the story. That's the reason why the doctor's there, and there's interactions between the narrator and the doctor. Very good moments, I think, in the story. They're very well written and well scripted, and I enjoyed those moments in this book. I've got to say that the writing is excellent. It feels effortless when you read it. It's so well planned out, so well plotted. There are just many layers to this story, and you just have to read it to experience those layers, to get the full picture. There are some moments in the story that are a little bit cringy. Things do happen that, border on the extreme sometimes, but they make sense to the whole story. They make sense to when they happen and the character that's doing them, the main character, the narrator. So in that way, the story can be shocking, but it's also understandable when it is. I'll describe two characters from the story because there's really only two characters that are given to us in any detail. That's the narrator and Reva. So first, the narrator. Of course, she's unnamed in the story, and that makes it even more intriguing, because why unnamed? Why is this narrator who's giving this big chunk of her life in the story unnamed? Does that mean she thinks of herself as nameless? Isn't she worth a name? That's interesting in the story. She's a character that's very self-aware of everything about herself. What makes her a positive person, what makes her a negative person, what makes her worthy as a friend or not worthy as a friend, what makes her who she is right at that moment. She's very self-aware as a character, and it's interesting to see this narrator who's self-aware of why she's acting certain ways and what her actions are doing to other people, and does she care about it or not. And in that way, when she doesn't care about certain things, or when she's very negative, very cynical, or even nasty in something she says or her thoughts, that's when she's not likable as a character. It does happen quite a lot in the book. So it's interesting having this character that's easy to not like, but it's very self-aware. And with the self-awareness, makes you engage with the character more, and in some ways becomes endearing, because the character feels very real, very consistent, and very human, because of how self-aware the character is. Reva is a character that is striving for self-validation. That seems to be the main driver in this character. She just rushes in to the narrator's life with a story about things going on and needs self-validation that she's a worthy person, that she's worth something, to give her confidence and give her worth. And then she just flits off again. That happens again and again in the story. Other things happen as well to this character, and they involve the narrator again, because Reva needs the narrator there for support all the time and that comfort. And you can see that friendship wearing thin as the book goes on. Reva is a character as well that is hard to like all the time, and that's because you get a sense the character's selfish. You get a sense the character's there for one reason only, and that plays out more and more. As you see that more and more, it becomes more clear in the story. It's harder to engage positively with Reva. So in essence, we have these two characters in the story, two main characters that are hard to like sometimes and hard to engage with sometimes in a positive way. So it makes a very unique read, I think. I did enjoy this book. It's not for everybody. Not all readers are going to enjoy it. And I don't think the author really cares about that. I think the author cares about writing a good story, a well-constructed story, writing what she wants to write in the way she wants to write it and the characters she wants to present to the reader. And I don't think the author really cares if readers love or hate her books. They're very polarizing, and I think the author's happy with that. I rate this a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well written. It's very clever. I think the author is very unique. Has a special way of presenting things in her books and presenting these really unique characters that are engaging but not likable, negative, positive, self-aware, all these things going on with the characters. And I think the author has this great grasp on character voice. And that's one of the strengths of this author. And I'd say this author has that grasp on character voice better than most authors I've read in recent history anyway. I want to read all the catalogue from this author. On my channel, I review books from many genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. There's sure to be something there that you enjoy.